All right there, everyone. Liberals are losing the ideological battle against the nationalists. That's what we'll be talking about on today's video. Actually, we'll be looking at precisely why globalist liberalism isn't just dying. Globalist liberalism is, in fact, already dead. But first, make sure to get your copy of my new book, Classical versus Pop Music. What's the difference? Free for a limited time as an ebook download at the link below. For you Kindle readers, you can also get a free copy at the Kindle link below. This is an important book if you want to understand how modern globalism has so severely affected our capacity to enjoy music and art in a way that our forefathers were able to do. Music and art have been one of the most soul-enriching resources for our human flourishing, and in many respects, globalism has killed that off. It's killed off that formative aspect of music and art for our lives and replaced it with just some cheap consumerism. Well, this book is going to help you recover everything you need to know in order to enjoy the cultural richness of music, so you can enjoy pop music but with an even deeper musical sense than you ever knew existed. I think you're really going to like the book. It's a quick read, and it's yours free for limited time at the link below. My one humble request is that you leave a review on the Amazon page, which helps so much with Amazon's promotion of the book, and for that, I really can't thank you enough. All right. I've been rather impressed to see the amount of articles that have been written of late that recognize a pattern or trend that we've, of course, been analyzing on this channel for years now. And that's how liberals, globalists, center-left, center-right liberals, are increasingly losing the ideological battle against nationalist populism that's on the rise all over the world. And like we've said over and over on this channel, we ain't seen nothing yet. This, in many ways, is just getting started. It's just the beginning. The world is turning more and more to the nationalist populist right. And I came across an article in particular that was analyzing the recent Indian election, the national election there in India, where the BJP, the Bharatiya Janata Party, which is the single largest democratic party in the world, won their national elections for the second time in a row in what was nothing less than a massive landslide. Now, the BJP, if you don't know, they are India's nationalist populist right-wing party. They are a thoroughly Hindu nationalist party. And this journalist who writes the article, he noted that their victory is part of a wider global trend of victories for nationalist populist candidates and parties that's been going on for the last few years. And he asked the simple question as to why? Okay, why are liberals losing everywhere we look? Right? Why are liberals losing the ideological battle to the nationalist populists? And he gives a rather obvious answer. I mean, obvious in the sense that it reveals just how foolhardy liberalism actually is. Simply put, the answer he gives, nationalism is integral to maintaining a nation. If you don't have nationalism, you don't have a nation. Nationalism gave rise to the modern state system that liberated tens of millions of people from colonial imperialism, and democracy is the direct result of this nationalism. The nation state provided freedom from the tyranny of imperial projects, and nationalism is integral to the very structure of that liberty, of that freedom. Liberalism is all about liberating us from nationalist sentiments. Okay, and as such, it ends up becoming just another form of cultural imperialism, whether it's coming from the Bolsheviks or the bullies in Brussels or big tech censorship, whatever. Wherever liberalism raises its ugly head, it always involves imposing highly illiberal policies on populations. So I really like how practical and simple this fellow put it. But I do think we could dig even deeper here. I think we still have to ask the question, why now? Why is this massive rebellion against globalism happening now? Where was it 50 years ago? 10 years ago, for that matter? To really understand what's going on here, I think we have to dig deep in terms of the tectonic shifts that are going on around the world. And what I'm talking about here is that we have to understand that liberalism, and I use that term as a general catch-all phrase for all leftist movements and ideologies. Look, I know there's some of you out there on the right that still want to cling to that term to describe classical liberalism, right? Classical liberal ideology, which is very conservative, which is very libertarian. I get it, I know. But sorry, I think that's a losing battle. I think the term liberal, as I'm using it here, as it is how it's generally used today to refer to leftism. It refers to any left-wing ideologies and movements. And the key to understanding left-wing ideology is its relationship to what scholars call modernity, okay? So that's really important to get. You have to understand liberalism as rooted in the philosophical notion called modernity or modernism, okay? Now, modernity or modernism is basically the belief that science and scientific rationalism is the one true way of understanding the world for all people, times, and places, okay? Scientific rationalism is viewed as this one-size-fits-all view of knowing the world for everyone. If you would disagree with that vision, if you believe that superstitions, particularly religious superstitions, are more important than scientific rationality, then you are by definition dangerous because you're a savage. You're primitive. You're still living in the Dark Ages. And the 18th century Enlightenment enthroned scientific rationalism as the one-size-fits-all way of knowing the world that defined a future of progress centered on a new foundation for human solidarity. Religions in the past couldn't do it. They simply couldn't unite us. It's really that simple. Religion, rather than unite humanity, it's argued, ends up dividing humanity. It divides humanity because religion is inherently irrational, which of course entails the belief that if humans were to collectively embrace rationality and its scientific outworking, we would in fact realize an era of human unity and solidarity that the religious and dark ages before us have thus far thwarted. And so modernity gave birth to three major political, economic, and cultural systems that dominated the 20th century. Modernity gave birth to liberal democracy, it gave birth to communism, and it gave birth to fascism. Liberal democracy was touted as the one-size-fits-all political system. Communism was touted as the one-size-fits-all economic system. And fascism was touted as the one-size-fits-all cultural and ethno system. Now, of course, World War II took out fascism. So the ensuing years became a standoff between the other two modernist systems. And so with the fall of the Soviet Union on Christmas of 1991, ideologues like Francis Fukuyama told us that we had reached the end of history, that liberal democracy won the battle of modern ideologies, right? Easy peasy, right? There were three major modernist alternatives and liberal democracy won the day. The problem with this end of history notion is that it failed to realize that it wasn't so much communism that had died, but rather the real victim was modernity itself. You see, the problem we're facing today in the 21st century is that no one believes that scientific rationalism is the one true way of understanding reality anymore. Populations are today what we call postmodern, okay? They're no longer modern in the strict philosophical sense. It was the scholar Lyotard who recognized by the late 70s that Western populations had largely abandoned the modernist myth. The modernist enthronement of scientific rationalism as the one-size-fits-all way of knowing the world was being more and more abandoned. And that abandonment has only increased over the last 10 years or so. Today, it's almost impossible to find anyone on a college campus or in a corporate boardroom defending the notion that there is only one way of understanding the world. Okay? There's only one meaning system for all people's times and places. We today are postmodern. We value plurality. We value diversity over this one-size-fits-all conception of life. But here's the key. If you get this, I think a lot of things start becoming clear in our world today. Here's the key. Even although modernity has been largely rejected by global populations, that rejection is not stopping Western elites, our elites in the realms of politics, corporations, film, art, music, entertainment. That rejection has not stopped our Western elites from exporting the fruits of modernity in the form of globalization, in the form of a one-size-fits-all political, economic, and consumerist system for all people's times and places. What we have to get in terms of the overall tension or the pressure that's building up in our world today is is that even though the vast majority of the global populations have rejected modernity as a philosophical system, we nevertheless continue to live within modernist institutional structures in the form of globalization. We continue to be surrounded with globalist politics, globalist media, globalist universities, globalist monetary policies, globalist legal systems, globalist human rights, globalist grievance politics, and on and on and on. That's the pressure that's building up. We no longer believe in modernity and the philosophical foundation of this one-size-fits-all political, economic, cultural system. And yet that system, that globalist system, continues to dominate our world at the hands of its ruling political, economic, and media elite. And so what's happened is that this powder keg has started to blow. The pressure has built up and it's begun to explode. We're seeing nothing short of a massive backlash going on all over the world against modernist globalism, where populations are once again reasserting their nation's cultures, customs, and traditions, their religions. You know it as a mechanisms of resistance against globalization's anti-cultural dynamics and its secular aristocracy. And there appears little question that we're seeing this clash play out everywhere, whether it's the nationalists versus liberals in the United States, or Brazil, or throughout Europe, or India, or Japan, or whether it's the corporatist globalist media versus the alternative media, or the modernist Marxists in the church versus conservative traditionalists. Everywhere we look, we're seeing this clash, this crisis in modernity. And so the fundamental reason why liberals are losing the ideological battle to nationalism really is rather simple. Liberalism is inextricably and ideologically linked to a collapsing belief system. In being postmodern, we are inevitably post-liberal. The ideological norms of liberalism today, particularly its commitment to open borders and human rights and grievance politics, are becoming increasingly unintelligible. Even among the grievance groups, right? We're seeing them begin to break up into their own versions of tribalism. For over a decade, we've been noticing an increase, for example, in tensions between Latinos and African Americans. Or think of the complete and total incompatibility between Muslims and gays and lesbians, right? We're finding in places in England where school districts have a majority Muslim population. They want nothing to do with the LGBT wing of grievance politics. The feminists are increasingly uncomfortable with the whole notion of transgenderism, as we're seeing women being knocked out of competitive sports by transgenders. So much for women making it to the top. Liberals are losing the ideological battle against nationalists because liberalism is dead. It is philosophically dead, which of course also explains why they become so hysterical and so extreme at all levels. The political level, right, on college campuses, on CNN, liberalism is unraveling. And as a result, one can argue that liberalism is not losing the battle against nationalism. Liberalism has already lost. As always, please like, comment, and subscribe. Make sure to download your free copy of my book, Classical versus Pop Music, for free for a limited time. And check out our merch that celebrates all things nationalist, populist, and traditionalist that you're going to love. And also click on either our Patreon subscribes to our PayPal links below and consider becoming a monthly or one-time supporter and help us to continue to analyze current events in light of super awesome conservative trends so that you can live in the present in light of even better things to come. God bless.